What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Marvel's Spider-Man 2 should have been delayed. Now, this has been a topic that really has been a discussion, for several months. I've seen it oftentimes brought up on social media, mainly on Twitter, okay? Gotta be real, right? You see it a lot on Twitter. But I gotta be honest, I actually think there's something to it. There's always seems like every few days, every few weeks, there's kind of just like something else that comes out in terms of cut content or, interviews with some of the developers of this game. And there were really signs all along, right? Or at least recently, maybe the last 6 or so months, that there was a lot changed, especially regarding the last third of the game. Again, we had direct interviews where these people were saying those things, right? Where it seems like Sony at some point stepped in. And so I thought now would actually be a pretty good time to talk about it. We just got, I don't know if I should spoil it because I don't know how Insomniac/Sony is with leaks, but there was actually basically a cut boss fight that was found in I believe coding on a PC build of this game. I saw that. There was a picture of it that came out this morning, and that just got me thinking, all right, there's so much stuff, that they reworked with this game. There's so much stuff that they cut with this game. Should the game have been delayed? So let's just answer the question really fast, then we'll get, more into it. Yes, I actually, controversially maybe, think the game should have been delayed. Now, I don't really think that's all that controversial. What I think honestly happened is Sony made the final call in regard specifically for this. Now, what it seems to be, generally I feel Sony is kind of hands-off, okay? I'm sure there are times that they kind of mandate, right? But as the industry has gotten older, and we've seen it really over the last several years, a lot of studios, it's kind of like a pride point, right, where they say, the publisher is very hands-off. We're allowed to do our own thing. Now, things are, agreed upon, and obviously they have to pitch them their games first, and they have to, give their stamp of approval. There's a lot of approvals that needs to happen, immediately at the beginning. But then, yeah, it is kind of a point of pride where these companies don't really mess with it. But ultimately, it is a business. I'm not necessarily trying to defend Sony in this way, because I think it would have been best kind of for everybody to put the game out when it was actually done, okay? Now, you could say, well, if the third act of this game was kind of all over the place, if it was a mess, hard decisions need to be made, right? In life, number one, but in the gaming industry, okay? In the gaming industry, you are sometimes going to have to make, actually, I would imagine a lot of times, you have to make hard choices. And I could see an entire act of a game, basically, right, being a hard choice, where I wouldn't imagine this is all that uncommon. Now, maybe to the degree of, Spider-Man 2, maybe that's a little bit more rare, but I would imagine decisions of cut content and having to pivot and really change up even story beats of games, I would imagine that happens, maybe more than you would expect, okay? There's just a lot of eyes on Spider-Man. Obviously, it's a big name, and it's Sony's kind of flagship thing. So all eyes are on it. It is very important to get this game out. So to come to their defense, just in the sense that I get why it happened, number one, again, hard choices are sometimes made. So while I would have liked to have seen this stuff that it definitely sounds like they were working on, and the third act of this game was probably going to be very, very different, okay, than what we actually got. Would I have liked to seen it? Yes. Do I understand that sometimes these things happen, at least in the way that I've just explained it? Yeah. And I would say from Sony's point of view, okay, well, if you delay it, well, what's the pro and con, right? Well, the pro is obviously giving Insomniac more time. The con is you lose out on when Spider-Man 2 released. And this game released at a really good time, right? I mean, Spider-Man 1 released back in September, this game in October, and I mean, they just have that fall market at their grasp, right? And it's not even so much like a console war thing. It's, literally just from Sony, Spider-Man sells. Spider-Man sells consoles, it sells itself, and it really helps PlayStation out, especially if you do it around that fall period, around that Black Friday period. You can kind of lean into that, right? I get it. I absolutely get it, but it's really that pro-con. If you delay it, well, you miss out on that Black Friday, and Sony could be looking at it from God knows where, right? Investors are just stock and just literally their money, right? You look at it and you say, okay, if we don't put it out in October, if we put it out sometime in May, is it going to do as well? Now, I would actually argue yes. I would actually argue for a game as big as like the God of Wars or Spider-Man, or even like the first Horizon game, I believe what came out in February, and it went on to being one of PlayStation's highest selling games, hence why they're kind of going all in and making like 5,000 Horizon projects, right? Why? Because the first game not out of nowhere, but it came out in February, right? I mean, like, games can do well anywhere, but you wouldn't necessarily think it would be one of the higher selling PlayStation exclusives, and it does insane. So I would argue that a good game can sell anywhere, okay? I've said that, and I believe that. Now, like, competition, or like if it's a game like Alan Wake 2. I love Alan Wake 2. I think that's an amazing game. It's a niche game. It's very specific, so it's not guaranteed to sell. A game as big as Spider-Man, with that name recognition, with PlayStation backing it, with all the factors, right? I think you could put this game out whenever, and it would still do really well. So I wouldn't buy the argument necessarily that it was all about the fall, right? It may have actually been more about maybe it was a mess. Maybe the third act, was a complete mess. And yes, they could have made it work, but maybe it would have taken them like 2 more years. But you see, I'd be fine with if the game didn't come out in October and say they delayed it and they put in all this stuff. And there's actually one other part I want to talk about here, but they put in everything and it came out in like May or June. But that is assuming that it's only like, 6, 7, 8 months later. If you want to give them like unlimited time and it takes them like 2 more years, okay, then I could actually see Sony stepping in and saying, nope, we got it. This thing's expensive. You guys cost a lot of money. We need to get this game out, ASAP. I would actually somewhat understand that. But the one thing I wanted to add in is, well, okay, number one, why should it have been delayed? Well, we kind of addressed it. A lot of cut content. Third act seemed like it was going to be bigger, and better is subjective, and hearing something is, a different feel than actually playing it, right? So you can hear about what they were planning to do, with the third act, or even if you just wanted to give Venom kind of more time to breathe. That's good, and I would like to see that implemented, but it is different hearing it. Granted, it's different hearing it than actually playing it. But I want to throw in, and this might be, something that people don't care about all that much, but I do think this is another thing that adds to the point. New Game Plus. Now, I believe, right, the original Spider-Man and Miles, or at least Miles, I forget kind of the history, but this is not uncommon. That's basically my point. New Game Plus not launching with the game is kind of common. Now, I would throw in my controversial take. I really don't like that. I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know how we got to this point in the industry. Well, I do. I actually very much understand how we got here. And God of War has done it. It's in my belief that the game should come out with the full game. Now, you could argue, is New Game Plus part of the full game? I would say at this part of where we're at in the gaming industry, it's something that a lot of people want. It's something a lot of people, I would hope, use, experience in the game. And so, yeah, I don't know. I would kind of consider it part of the full game, right? So the only reason I'm bringing it up is this is just another example, right? So you can debate the cut content. You can debate, just making more of having a bigger third act and all that jazz, pacing issues and stuff like that, right? And maybe if they actually put it in the game, maybe it would turn out better. Maybe it actually wouldn't make all that much of a difference. But with me throwing in this New Game Plus stuff, the reasoning is it's just more things that you could say, well, if you delayed it, say 6, 7, 8 months, would New Game Plus be part of it? Well, it absolutely would. You know what I mean? So just giving it 6 months, you'd be able to put it in versus now. The game came out in October. We're sitting here in January, and we don't have New Game Plus. We don't have several kind of replaying features that a lot of people wanted in this game. Now, I'm not going to, for me personally, I don't care all that much, okay? I haven't replayed Spider-Man 2, and when I do, it'll probably be in another year, 2 years, 3 years, and by then, I guess New Game Plus will be in it no matter what, right? So, it's kind of, I'm trying to take even myself out of it. I'm not bothered by it, but I think I just want to use it to make the point that it's just something else that wasn't in the game when it launched, right? I don't know. I feel like this is not really all that controversial. I feel like as time has gone on, like I started this video with, I think the more weeks and months pass, the more interviews we hear, the more pictures that we, the thing that sparked me making this video, the more times we see, oh, this was cut, or they had planned a different part of the third act and then Sony kind of came in. Every time you hear that, you think, man, why did they do this, to Spider-Man? And again, the answer could be as easy as they wanted it for their fall game. That holds a lot of power. I get it to some extent. I don't agree with it. I would say let the game breathe, let the game have the time it needs, and I think it would actually make an impact for Sony whenever it comes out. But I mean, again, business-wise, I get it. I imagine there's very much something to releasing the game in the fall. But I don't know, this game, it's not like cursed or anything, but it definitely just has this backing where it's like so much seemingly happened behind the scenes. And like I said earlier, maybe this happens for a lot of games. In fact, I'm sure this does happen actually for a lot of games. This is just very much in the public eye. This is bigger than most games that you hear about or see about. It's got that Spider-Man name. And I don't think people would necessarily be making a bigger deal out of it, but it's just in the public eye more, right? So I don't know. I would have had this game be delayed, come out, March, April, May, June, somewhere in that range, and I think it actually would have done just as well as it did, to be honest with you. As maybe, honestly, like I like this game a lot. I still very much like this game, and I think the internet generally, like, yeah, you have a lot of fighting, but I think generally this game sold well, this game was received well, not across the board, but like most of the way. But, delaying it 6-7 months, if you added in those kind of extra elements, or maybe it takes more than 6-7 months, I don't know, you could have had maybe a game that even did better. That's kind of like the argument I'm trying to get to. Maybe you can actually work it in a way where the game actually sells better and performs better than it did. And we'll never, I guess, know that, right? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.